Any minute now. There we are. Wonderful. How is stream health looking? Stream is healthy. Got this open. Got this open. Woo! Wonderful. Awesome. Now make dumb announcement. Because I don't bother to do this before I stream. Ever. Lincoln bio. YouTube in bio. Boop, boop, boop. Add that. Alrighty, now we can actually officially start. Welcome back, everybody. I am your narrator, Fallout Sheppy, and yes, we are indeed doing random creepypastas again, live. And this time I will do my damnedest to hold my final thoughts till the literal end of each story. I know that I have a bad habit of, jumping the gun and critiquing a story midway through. I've done it the last few times. I'm especially notorious for doing it in my bad creepypasta streams, but what can I say when it's literally a bad creepypasta? So, basically, I'm going to have a little bit of criteria for this one. Basically, I will be doing one of each length of stories. One short, one long, one medium. Not necessarily in that order. It just so happens that we have a short one to begin with. If I happen upon a, second short one, medium one, whatever, after already reading one, I will be skipping it, and I apologize if it's maybe one that you would like to have read aloud. I will have to just save up some of them for another stream. I'm also only doing 3 because I don't know how much time I have to work with today. I don't have work after this stream, but, with my family, who knows what the fuck? It's hard saying, not knowing, especially when everybody around me is very poor at planning. So, without further delay, I've already been dicking around for 2.5 minutes. Let's just jump right into it. Our first story is called FindMe.jpg. Damn, that's a short story. Oh boy. It also doesn't have any ratings. I accidentally read the first comment. It says it's the best creepypasta ever. I already have doubts. Not to jump the gun like I said I was gonna do, but I already have low hopes. Sorry, that just totally fucked up my microphone. In 2003, a photograph depicting a lost child began circulating on the internet. There was no detail on the child other than what was seen in the actual photo, and could be found under the search parameters findme.jpg. The photo showed a smiling young girl about 8 or 9 years old. The girl is seen standing alone in front of a swing set, wearing a purple dress with a white flower in her hair. Her name, or where she was seen last, was never mentioned. Circulating the internet through emails and pop-ups, the girl was seen by millions, but never found. 1 year to the day after the photo initially began its circulation, the image returned to the internet. The text on the photo stated, "Find me," but now the photo had changed. The swing set was battered, the paint rusting and chipping away, and the swing hanging by a single chain. The girl appeared older, and her smile had faded into a look of indifference, and the white flower in her hair had begun to wilt. The image reappeared the following year, to the date, with further alterations. The swing set was now broken in half, the chains and seat on the ground. The girl was again older, and now crying, her flower now dead, and her dress dirty and torn. "Find me" was written in red text across the bottom of the photo. The 3rd year the photo returned. The swing set was gone, and a strange man was standing in the distance watching her. The girl was older, her sadness turned to anger, and her dress was tattered rags. "Find me," was written in larger text on the photo. The fourth year showed the same girl, now a teenager, with the strange man standing directly behind her, a camera in his hand. The girl had been beaten severely, her face bloodied and battered. She's now glaring with hollow eyes, her dress nothing more than bits of torn fabric. The text below then read, "Please, find me." The fifth year, the photo returned, but now the girl was dead. Her body posed upright, with a white flower tucked in her hands. The text on the photo read, "Why didn't you find me?" The sixth year, a photo was circulated again. There was no one in the photo. It only showed the strange field. The strange field where the broken swing set had once sat. The text below read simply, "I found you." Shortly thereafter, strange deaths began occurring. Each death revolved around a theme. The victims were always men, and each man had opened the file featuring the photo. The men were all found in the field with a white flower tucked in their hands. "I found you" was written across their faces in their own blood, after they had been beaten to death. Okay, I'm not gonna say it was bad, because it's not. I like the lead up. I like the build up. I like how every year the photo is like degrading and the girl in the photo is becoming basically worse and worse and worse, leading up to her being dead. That I actually like, because that it gets you a little bit anxious, like, so wait, could this girl actually be real? As she's aging, she's like growing, and we can see shit around her changing. So it's like, that part, like, it leaves an air of, did this happen? But then the whole random deaths of, like, men. That part just seems a little bit random. Like, A, why is it specifically men that had opened the photo? And how are they to determine the men that opened the photo? Is there some kind of weird tracking Trojan horse virus hooked to it? Or is the email just... Oh, my dad's home. I'm like, I can hear a voice. But it's not bad. Could use a little bit of work. Like, the ending. The ending definitely needs a little bit of work. But I thought this one was alright. Again, not great. I'd say, like, it's 50-50. Because I like the build-up. I like the intent. I don't like the conclusion or the randomness of these deaths were specifically men. Always men. It's like, okay, interesting detail. Elaborate just a little bit more, maybe. Just maybe. Then again, that might just be me. Alright, what's our next pasta? I didn't know huge could be a length. Also, why does my camera keep going out of focus? Next investment, new camera. Okay, you know what? I want to see how huge a huge pasta is. To be fair, I did say I was going to read a long one too. But if there's more than just short, medium, and long, does that mean I should do 4 stories? You know what? Fuck it. Halfway, not even halfway. Partially through the stream, I'm changing my rules. Guess we're doing 4 stories, because this one is dubbed huge. Not long, huge. I didn't know they could be categorized as huge. Alright. This story is called Bad Taste. haven't even smoked. I didn't even smoke before this stream, and my throat is all fucked up. I bet you it's from reading Homestuck. My first memory would be that of my boyhood in the summer of 1995. Hey, a year before I was born. God, I feel old. When I was only 12 years old, my mother, my brother, and I had recently moved into a new home apartment. You could have just said new apartment or new home. And then started the next sentence with apartment. I'm doing it again. I am fucking doing it again. I do this every goddamn time. I need to wait. I need to just... Sheppy, shut up. Which, now that I think about it, looked more like one of those haunted houses you see in old horror movies. However, this story is not of that genre, my friend. Why is it on Creepypasta? Sheppy, shut up. So, do not delude yourself into thinking that it will, as it is not. I'm letting it go. My mother worked in a... I'm dumb. My mother worked a full-time job at a local college, and my brother and I would usually be babysat by one of our neighbors when she was off at work. We used to hate this particular woman, whom we called Miss Hickory. You do not need to put a period after Miss. Yes! I'm recording a stream! It's all good, I'm just wondering why the hell you were tapping.
I got a few demands.
Ah, shit.
Mom needs to quit tripping. Bitch be tripping all the time.
You sure you didn't trip one? Push one?
Mom needs to quit tripping. Bitch be tripping all the time.
He's annoying. And I lost my place. Thanks!
I didn't do it.
We used to hate this particular woman, whom we called Miss Hickory, due to her old age and her strict demeanor. I don't get why you call her Hickory then. Like a stereotypical librarian who would shush any person who was trying to speak in the library. She would always sit on her back porch in a rocking chair and stare out towards our house, due to the fact that we lived across the street from her. This served the dual purpose. That's not the right dual. That's the wrong dual. You spelt dual as in to duel with someone. I believe you wanted D-U-A-L, as in duel, two. To split, or to have two of. I'm sorry. I swear, I'm not doing this on purpose. I promise. This served the dual purpose of also allowing her to watch for anyone getting near her vegetable garden. Especially my brother and I. Oh, now you do it right. Every time me and my brother would be playing outside, and then it goes again. Could just say anytime we would be playing outside. Sheppy, shut up. She would scowl at us for getting too close to her vegetables. She was damn convincing, because every time we got near it, she would yell and scream at us not to, or else. And almost immediately, we would turn tail and run back home. I'll tell you, when you're 5 years old and you hear those words, you really begin to think what she will do to you. I mean, me and my brother would constantly try and come up with what she might do to us if we ever got near her garden. But despite this, we did heed her warning and did stay away from it. I'm trying not to have issues with the grammar, but it's also really badly fucking up my reading. Despite that woman's constant nagging at my brother and I I don't think you understand what constant means. Despite that woman's constant nagging at my brother and I, we began to explore more and more of her house and progressively got braver and braver with each visit. Especially since all we did at her house was either read or take naps in her living room. Her house wasn't very large, and by my guess, I would say it would have been at least a 2-story with around 5 to 6 rooms in it. That's a large-ass house. I don't know what your definition of a small house is, but if it's got 5 to 6 rooms in it and it's a 2-story, that's not a small house. That's really not. Unless, like, the rooms are rather tiny, then I guess it could be a small house. But usually when I hear 2-story, I don't think small. Again, might just be me. Need to shut up and just read. The living room was full of decorative cuckoo clocks, some bird's nests, some old furniture that included a stretch sofa that began from the center of the room to the leftmost window. Oh, and speaking of the windows in the room, she had 2 large windows in the living room, which one was behind the couch, and the other was seated to the right of the couch, which, oh darn, I forgot what this particular window gave view of. My apologies. Please allow me to continue. Nobody was stopping you. Nobody. The room contained a medium-sized TV that was at the center of the room, which, despite hanging a TV, this woman would not allow us to watch it in her house. This was only one of the many reasons why I felt hatred towards her. However, both my brother and I had the curiosity of just what this particular woman held in the remainder of her little abode. So we began to come to the decision that we were going to investigate just what our dear old neighbor had in those 5 remaining rooms. You know, actually, now that I think about it, I live in a rather small house, and it's got like 4 or 5 rooms, so I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that he said it's a 2-story that made me think big. Again, California, most 2-stories around here are rather big. Unless it's like an old-ass cottage. And I mean old-ass cottage. I think it was after the 3rd day of being babysat by Miss Hickory. Now you say Miss, right? Well, fuck me, man. What is... I need to stop having issues with the story. I think it was after the 3rd day of being babysat by Miss Hickory that we began our little escapade. My mother had just woken us up from our bed and we were getting dressed when my brother began to ask, What exactly do you think she has in her house? I paused for a moment, since I was still trying to wake at this point, and after slipping on my Batman t-shirt, I looked over at my brother and shrugged. Maybe her witch's broomstick, or maybe even a cauldron? I jokingly retorted. Did I just give them the same exact voice? Excuse me. I probably did. We had always thought of Miss Hickory as a witch, since she was very old and tended to look a little wicked by in her rocking chair, glowering at the rest of the denizens of our little neighborhood. I don't know why I read it that way, I apologize. The morning went on with the daily routine, with me heading to the kitchen to get some breakfast. My brother and I quietly ate our Cocoa Puffs, and my mom quietly busied herself with getting ready to go to work. Suddenly, she stopped amidst her routine and looked at us with a worried look. Are you two okay? You usually aren't this quiet in the morning. I didn't want to worry my mother, so I simply looked up at her and smiled. Yeah, we're fine, Mama. I guess we're still waking up. I laughed a little bit at the thought, but I felt a bad taste in my mouth. He said it. He said it. And then I am dumb and lost my place. As I usually do when I lie, even to this day. Foreshadow. And kindly reassured my mother that everything was okay. She stared at us for a few minutes and cracked a smile and patted our heads. I'd say you guys need more caffeine than I do, she said jokingly. As she walked out of the kitchen, I began to eat more of my cereal. The last thing I wanted to do at this point was worry my mother, because at this point in her life she should not have to worry about her children, since she had so much to worry about already, such as bills or family issues. Commas. You can use more than one. I know that, like, English teachers say, try to avoid using more than one comma in a conjoined sentence. You can use two at least. At least. Like, don't be that person that does a comma every other word, but, like, you need more commas. Or shorter sentences. Furthermore, she already worried about us having to being babysat by Miss Hickory because of the way we would try to dissuade her from having Miss Hickory babysit us. Help me. Help me. Also, I'm gonna rip my nose off. It's killing me. But as we began to complain, my mother began to deal with more bills and stress from her workplace. So you can understand why I had to lie to my mother, because if I were to tell her about my troubles, then it would result in piling more stress on my mother. And she was already at her limit, just like I am at my limit for these shitty... Just like I am with my shitty nose and these horrible fucking spelling errors. Grammar errors. English errors. Fucking nose. Oh, God. If that doesn't help it, I don't know what will. Okay. After breakfast, my brother and I began to head out the door with my mother close behind us. Fucking microphone. As we opened the door to our... we saw one of the two cats we had standing at the front door waiting to be allowed inside. "Hey, Patches!" I exclaimed as I began petting her calico fur, and in response she began rubbing against my leg, covering my blue jeans in some fur. After my petting, she dashed into the house as my mother began to close the door. I always loved those cats. They always helped me through some hard times, such as when Miss Hickory upset me when I had done nothing wrong, when I was only near her garden. Or what the other children had said to me at school, such as nerd, freak, and many other names. We walked across the street to her house, whose front entrance was a single door in the middle of one huge window to the right. Wait. No, that's not my brain fucking up. That's actually the way that it's written. We walked across the street to her house, whose front entrance was a single door in the middle of one huge window to the right of the door, and had a large porch with a handrail that went around the house all the way to the back. Fucking, oh my God. I might actually end up skipping this one just because I'm having such a difficult time with it. But I will power through. We are not even halfway. There was also a large overhang over the porch in order to give the ones underneath it a proper oasis from the blaring sun. That's not what oasis means. In front of the house lay an iron gate that separated the sidewalk from her house. I'm done. From her outside garden. Also, yes, that is where the damn thing was, and I'm sorry for not mentioning it beforehand, but I just remembered its location, okay? Memory isn't so easy when you have to remember when you were 5 years old. Oh my God. Type this like you're 5 years old with this small, like, thesaurus next to you. My mother followed us closely, as if she was making sure we would actually knock on the door and go inside the house, because, Excluding the fact that my brother and I were extremely young, she knew that we'd probably just play at the neighborhood playground all day and ditch being babysat by that witch. And I mean, almost anything was better than that torture. But what about exploring the house? Can't explore the house if you don't go in it. My nose, I say as I scratch my knuckle. We walked up to the door with each step echoing through the wood. And as we stepped onto the porch, my heart literally felt inside my throat. My mother knocked at the wide door and waited for a response. The curtain in the large window swished, and I saw an old woman looking at us in that brief instance. But they then swished back to their original stillness. Then, almost a few seconds after, the door swung open, revealing a wrinkly old woman who was dressed in a worn-out long-sleeved shirt and jeans. Her hair looked like a gray perm on top of her wrinkly head, and her eyes, which glowered at my brother and I, at a split second and then snapped up to my mother. "Hello, Miss Hickory," my mother said in a welcoming tone. "I am just here to drop off the boys for the day." The old woman simply gave a slight nod and opened the door. Excuse me. "All right, come along, boys. We have a lot of chores to do today, and we mustn't dilly-dally. I am watching you, Wazowski. Always watching." Very sure that is not the same voice. But damn if it don't remind me of that. "We have a lot of Oh, wait. Miss Hickory retorted to us. I looked up at my mom and hugged her, and she hugged me back. "Don't worry, sweetie. I'll be back around 5, she whispered as she crouched down to hug me. I simply nodded and began to walk inside Miss Hickory's house. This was going to be a long day, I just knew it. The door then closed behind me, and thus the day where we would find out just what kind of person Miss Hickory was had begun. Yay, now we're actually getting to the interesting part. I'm sorry, I don't know why this story has me so unenthusiastic, but when you stumble that much at the starting line, you don't have a lot of hopes they're gonna make it to the finish, you know? Again, probably just me. Probably everybody else is listening like, Sheppy, shut up and read. I was standing in a medium hallway that led to the living room, and in this hallway were the occasional pictures and various cuckoo clocks. Leading upstairs was a long staircase with a railing to the right of the hallway, so I had to move to the left of it to continue to the living room. I entered the room begrudgingly and sat down on the left of my brother on the couch and waited for Miss Hickory to come back down from her room, which is where she made our daily chore list, which could take about 5 or 10 minutes depending on the day. During that time, my brother and I discussed how we would sneak a peek at the rooms that she kept us away from. Our plan was simple. While we came in and out of the house, we would detour and open a slight crack in the door and try to see what she had in each room. I'm sorry, I'm just preemptively expecting some fuck up. And instead it's fucking me up. And sneeze. God damn it. Tried to see what she had in each room. Then, shut the door when we spent at least a few seconds looking inside it. I would explore the first 3 doors in the hallway that were connected to the living room. My brother, since he was scared of going upstairs, would explore the door located underneath the staircase. "All right," I said to my brother. "Remember, only open the door a little, but not too much." "Oh, little bit, but not too much. You only need to see what the room is like in the crack," I instructed to my little brother. He was about the same age that I was, but he was still a year younger than me, so I still had to act like the more responsible one out of the 2 of us. Miss Hickory returned with the chore list and assigned me to clean the kitchen, which was located right behind the living room, and wash the dishes as I cleaned. My brother was assigned to do laundry, and not knowing where the room was, Miss Hickory directed him to the door underneath the staircase, and opened the door, revealing another staircase that twisted around to the darkness below.
"I will bring the clothes to you in baskets," she said. "Just take the detergent beside the washing machine, which is in the cabinet above the dryer."
She began to walk down the stairs with my brother in tow, and as I began to follow them, she stopped me and said,
"Tyson, you have a kitchen to clean. Get to it."
Knowing that she would probably yell at me, I walked over to the kitchen and opened the door, which was located a few feet from the couch. Okay, so maybe it is a real small house. Maybe it is. Again, I'm just stupid and I hear 2-story. Suddenly think it's massive. The kitchen was not much to look at. Its flooring was a white No, that does say tiled, okay. It was a white tiled floor that looked like it had been recently cleaned. In the center of the room was a medium-sized coffee table that had several wooden chairs. To the right of the coffee table was the countertop that stretched from the back of the room, where in the top right-hand corner of the room was a door that led to the backyard. To the wall that was beside me, there were 2 windows in the room. One to the left of me that viewed our house and the street that separated the 2 houses. The other was located above the stove, which lay in the near center of the elongated counter, which viewed the backyard. I keep slipping in mild Duke Nukem, and I don't mean to. In all honesty, it was pretty much a boring little room, but I do remember being particularly disgusted of the coffee table, because that was where Miss Hickory cut her vegetables, which already smelled horrible, and their taste was widely varied from a weird, sour, tangy taste to a sort of sweet taste within each of the vegetable. Pretty sure that should be vegetables. It was really weird on how I would play a sort of guessing game at lunch. Other than that little nitbit of contempt that I had against the room, I was rather content with it. Content. Not bad. While I cleaned the dishes, I began to think about what my brother was experiencing in that supposed laundry room, and what he was taking in from that room, or what exactly was in that room. So many room in one sentence. I'm sorry. Despite this thought, I finished my work, and after putting away the dishes, I walked over to the kitchen door and peeked out to see if Miss Hickory was anywhere in sight. Seeing that she wasn't, I quietly tiptoed over to the hallway and began to make my way to the door that was right across from the staircase. I quickly looked back at the open door to the so-called laundry room and saw that Miss Hickory had still not returned from the room. With this in mind, I slowly began to open the door until there was a crack in the doorway. I am sorry again. Once I opened the door just enough to allow me to see inside, I peered into the room. Okay, yeah, no, I'm reading that right. It was very hard to see due to the fact that okay, yeah, there is 2 that's. Son of a bitch. It was very hard to see due to the fact that the light of the room had not been turned on. But what I could see was some sort of pile of sorts. Department of Redundancy Department. And then I lose my own place. Some sort of pile of sorts, but I couldn't see what it was, and there were a variety of bags. I can't believe I haven't been doing this the whole time. Which I quickly identified due to the silhouettes of circular dark bags that were revealed by a small window with the blinds shielded most of the... God damn it. Bags that were revealed by a small window with the blinds shielding most of the sun's rays out. Or blinds which shielded most of the sun rays out. All except for those few rays that aided me in revealing the very silhouettes I saw before me. Then, as I began to try and reach for the light switch, I heard the echoing footsteps coming up the staircase of the laundry room. I quickly closed the door and managed to quickly but quietly stride over to the living room and pretend to be exiting the kitchen. I saw that my brother was struggling to try and lift the huge load of clothes that could be more of weights rather than a stack of clothing. Miss Hickory looked at me and said,
"I have to go take the garbage out, but I'll be right back to check on you before I go."
She then looked toward my brother and then uttered another command directed towards him this time.
"Gavin, please go set down the clothes on the couch and wait for me to get back."
That voice is probably way too quiet. I am so sorry. With that, she walked away, and after the sound of a nearby door closing, my brother and I set the clothes down on the couch. And once we had set everything down, he began to detail the room that he went into. Apparently, the room floor was concrete, and the walls were red brick laden with plaster linking each individual brick to another. The room itself contained a variety of boxes and assortments of different antiques that my brother could not recall since the room was very dark. Accidentally highlighted. Furthermore, the only sources of illumination were a single flickering light bulb that dangled. God. Oh, wait. I'm stupid. I need to read the whole sentence. Were a single flickering light bulb that dangled from a thread and a medium-sized window, which viewed only the grass of the front yard and some of the street. From that window's streamline of sunlight, it revealed the whitewashing machine, or as my brother put it, a washer machine, and a white dryer. It seemed pretty much the same as the kitchen, meaning that it was a pretty ordinary, if not cliché, type of room that an elderly person would have, now that I think about it. Or that anybody would have. Like, this story is really bothering me, and I'm sorry.
"Was there anything else?"
I asked him. He shook his head and said, "Nothin', big brother," he said reassuringly. Cannot read. I simply sighed and nodded my head, and after a few minutes, Miss Hickory returned with a garbage bag in hand, which looked like... Pretty sure there should be like a dash or a ... something. Because I'm pretty sure what they're going for is... Which looked like... like he's drawing connections, like... Could that garbage bag be the bags I saw? Like, that's what it seems like, but they just kind of left it off. Almost like they forgot to finish the sentence. Trying not to let this bother me. Really, I'm trying. But this is like making me watch The Invisible Man again.
"Tyson," she said, "you and Gavin help vacuum..."
Help vacuum the living...
You help
I'm pretty sure they meant to say,
"You help Gavin vacuum the living room while I throw away some trash." "While I throw away some trash."
That's a little better. I looked at the bag for a second and recognized it almost instantly as she raised it above her hip. It was the same sort of bag that resembled the same shape and size of the bags that I saw in that room that I peeked into just a few moments ago. Yes, I thought to myself in triumph, that I might discover what exactly was in those bags. Perhaps from that discovery I might be able to discover what exactly she is hiding. Fuck my life. Now I kind of wish this was alcohol. Actually, I wonder what hibiscus alcohol would taste like. I might have to look that up later. Exactly what she was hiding. But I would have to wait, because if I began digging through the garbage bin in the middle of the day, she might discover... she might discover what I was up to, so I would wait until the end of the day. After she walked away, I told my brother about my plan. He reluctantly agreed, after I told him that all we were going to do was sneak out of our bedroom window, sneak around to the back of the neighborhood dump, and sneak around to the back of the neighborhood dump. I feel like an English teacher. which is where she dumps most of her garbage, and it was conveniently just at the end of the street, which would take only a few minutes to walk, and in our case, sneak over to. With our plans set, we continue. Fucking fly. Ah, fuck. Really? Get the fuck out. Go. Get. Fucking. The fuck off my pillow. Nope, didn't fucking kill it. God damn it. I hate flies. And now there's one, like, roaming around my Ha! Fucking gotcha! Ugh, gross. Haha, finally got it. That probably looks really funny on stream, actually. Just suddenly. Ugh. Also just fucked up my hand doing that. With our plans set, we continued on with our chores and day as usual, and I began to think about what she had in that garbage bag. The other idea was to sneak another peek at the room that the bag was originally in. However, knowing that she would be back any second... That's not a complete sentence. That is the start of a sentence. Like, that... Also, adding the fact that I was extremely nervous at this point, I just could not take the risk of entering that room with that over my head. At lunchtime, Miss Hickory fixed us some vegetable stew with some fried squash that might add tasted quite good for once. Might have. I realize some people say it as av without the H, but it's have. And for once, I was relieved not to play the sour or sweet guessing game with the meal she had made for me and my brother. I wonder what she had done differently to this batch of vegetables that she hadn't done before. Maybe she finally learned how to cook the vegetables just right and not leave the cooking just to chance. However, I didn't have the guts to ask her, though. I didn't want to make her despise me even more from my rude comments on her cooking. However, in order to lighten the mood in the room, I began to chat with Miss Hickory. "Miss Hickory," I began after swallowing a mouthful of soup, "why you collect so many cuckoo clucks?" I asked.
"Well," she began, "my father collected them when I was a young girl, and I guess I like the way they remind me of him."
She began to tell us about how she grew up and what she went through as a child. I listened intently on what she had to say, but my brother was only paying attention to his soup either out of apathy for the old woman, or he just didn't want to listen to an elder ramble on about their life in the past. Dick. Either way, I began to see that this old woman wasn't just some crazy old lady, but just a lonely old woman who had endured the torment of time. During the time that we used for lunch, which was from 12 to 1:30, she told me tales of her youth. One of my favorites was the tale that she told of when she married a charming young man who swooned her off her feet when she was only 17. She also told me that she told me that they had married one another right after high school graduation. She would go on and on about how much she loved her husband and how much he loved her.
"His name was Jonathan,"
she said dreamily.
"He was a wonderful man who would make me feel so warm on the inside, as love does to a young girl's heart. He used to wake up every morning, make me breakfast, and tell me how I reminded him of the sparkling morning sun. I just wish that I could still feel that sort of love as before.
Oh. I look up to Miss Hickory, and she looked as though she was on the edge of tears. So, being as young as I was, I asked, "Do you miss him?" She didn't even look back at me, but simply nodded, then got up from the coffee table and placed her plate in the sink and began washing it. While washing, she asked me,
"Tyson, have you ever felt what love feels like?"
Yes, because that's something that an old lady asks a 5-year-old. Absolutely. Totally. Not like, say, a 15-year-old, but a 5-year-old. It's somebody that doesn't even know what a crush is. I'm sorry. Again, trying not to have issues with this. Trying. The question itself baffled me a little, and I was taken aback by it. Taken aback by what she had said. I looked down at my soup and began to think of when was the last time I had felt love. Then I remembered that I had loved my cat, Patches. She would always comfort me when I got home. She would rub up against me and I would pick her up and hug her. That sort of love felt warm to me. "I love my cat Patches," I chirped happily. "I love her because she always helped me get through my worst days at school." I saw her face change a little bit, but only just a little. I began to feel a little unsettled. Why exactly had she asked me that question? As I sat in the chair, I began to think about what love, besides the feelings I held for my mom and my most beloved cat, really felt like. Luckily, I heard the clock chime, and I thank God it was 1:30. Because at this point, I felt that I had offended and hurt Miss Hickory from my insensitive retort. I quickly went back to my daily chores, which was, at this point, to help my brother fold up the clothes in the living room. Maybe we had it all wrong about Miss Hickory, I thought to myself as I began folding clothes. However, we still have 3 more rooms to go since we can't go into the one with the garbage bags. My brother and I concluded that while one of us was going to the bathroom, which was upstairs to the left, conveniently placed to the left of her main bedroom, the plan was, while I was going up to the bathroom, I would peek in the bedroom to see what secrets it potentially held. After I had folded the last of the clothes, I looked over at my brother and he simply nodded, and I walked into the kitchen once more where Miss Hickory appeared to finish up washing the dishes, and heard me come in through the door. I told her that I needed to use the restroom and asked for her permission. She simply nodded and said,
"Be sure to clean yourself up. Clean up after yourself."
I don't even know if I can blame dyslexia for that one. I simply retorted a thank you and... You use retort a lot. I simply retorted a thank you and strode over to the staircase, and as I began to climb the stairs, and admittedly, I was beginning to become... That's not... Boy. And as I began climbing the stairs, admittedly, I was beginning to become nervous as I neared the door. You don't need the and. You can take the and out. I'm probably coming off more and more mean every time I correct this, and I am so sorry. The hallway that led to both rooms was of medium length that allowed for only four... For fuck's sake. Hallway was of medium length that allowed for only a dozen footsteps at least with the bathroom only a few steps away from the master bedroom. A straight shot from the staircase. I was at the door. I grabbed the knob. I'm sorry, I'm slowly losing my mind. I was at the door, and looking behind me, I made sure that no one was around, and slowly twisted the old doorknob. I jumped the gun again. The door protested with a slight squeak as I began to open it. The room was nothing special. It just contained mostly old furniture, with a huge wardrobe at the leftmost end of the room, and the bed that was queen-sized with an assortment of pillows. The covers were dyed a faded crimson with what looked like an oversized doily to add a certain touch of antique decor. There were 2 huge windows adjacent to the bed that were clothed by white opaque curtains that blocked out the majority of sunlight, but still illuminated the room perfectly and added a sense of calming. I walked into the room a little bit where I was to the left of the bed, simply began to rethink everything that I had ever said or thought about Miss Hickory. Maybe we were wrong. I thought to myself, maybe Miss Hickory's just an old woman who is just lonely. Fucking knows. Suddenly, as I began to make my way out of the room, I heard footsteps, and in a panic I ran over to the wardrobe and hid inside, but only allowed a crack in between the doors to see what was happening. I saw Miss Hickory in the doorway, and while I could barely see her out of the little crack, I saw that she approached the wardrobe, and my heart began to beat faster and faster. However, she turned and knelt down beside the bed, and then I saw she pulled out a black chest from underneath the bed. After opening it, I saw what appeared to be a full set of black-tinted bottles. However, what drew my attention was the piece of paper that she pulled out of her pocket, then gradually checked off what appeared to be names on a list after pointing to each bottle as if it matched the name. After going through the list, the old woman quickly took the case out from under the bed and quickly hurried out of the room. However, she stopped out in front of the bathroom and knocked on the door.
Tyson, are you okay? You've been in the bathroom for a while. I don't mean to sound like Yoda.
She then motioned to the doorknob, and just as I thought that she would find out that I was not in the room, I heard my brother's voice echo throughout the house. Miss Hickory! I forgot, where do you get the paper towels? I spilled some water. She withdrew her hand from the doorknob and uttered a quick curse. She quickly went away from the room, and I heard the dull echoing of each step that she took down the stairs. Knowing that I was safe, I quickly exited the room with utmost quickness and went into the bathroom. Breathed a sigh of relief and leaned against the wood of the door. After that experience, due to the fact that I had explored the last room in her house, I decided that I had enough adventuring for one day. However, I couldn't help but think about what exactly what that list was. For fuck's sake. I couldn't help but think about what exactly that list was and what was in those bottles. God, there's so many unnecessary extra words. I also don't know why I keep right-clicking. Apologies. Maybe our plan to look through the garbage will have the answers I want. I had a feeling that those bags could possibly be linked to those bottles. I had told my brother about the events upstairs, and he began to become increasingly nervous about the plan to go dumpster diving to find the answers we, more than me and my brother at this point, wanted. You realize that implies that there's more than just you and your brother wanting answers, not that there's more to it than you expect, right? I don't know. However, he still wanted to discover what lied in the garbage. He said that if anyone comes near the two of us at any point, we were to run straight back home, and I reluctantly agreed to his terms. After the clock turned 5, my brother and I began to get ready for our mother to pick us up from this torment. But really, you were just being a non-dick. But then you gotta go and call it torture, even though you had a seemingly nice day. You're an asshole kid. You are an asshole kid. Oh boy. My mother entered the abode and thanked Miss Hickory for taking care of us, in which the old woman returned the thank you with, "It was my pleasure." Oh wait, Miss Hickory.
It was my pleasure. Oh, by the way, I want you to take some of the leftovers that we had from lunch. I already have enough of it to feed a family at Thanksgiving.
My mother simply chuckled at her retort and kindly accepted the box of leftovers, which contained the stew from our earlier lunch. As we left the house, I began to plot out our little night escapade. However, at this point, I had already my doubts. I already had my doubts and concerns about what this little adventure might bring about in the end. However, I didn't worry too much about the end result, rather the answers that we will receive from what was in those bags. Oh, we're nearly done. We are nearly done. After we entered our house, with one of our two cats, Patches, scampering out, we each took our own shower and redressed ourselves in comfortable clothing. My outfit was in the form of a blue jacket due to the fact that it was going to be cold tonight, and some jeans. My brother wore a long-sleeve shirt and some of the hand-me-down blackish baggy pants. You just mean some blackish baggy pants. You don't have to include the hand-me-down, because they were never mentioned before. We have no need for it to be dubbed the hand-me-down. My brother and I agreed that once we had dinner, we would sneak out our room window at 12 tonight. Because our mother falls asleep around 11, just to make sure, we wanted to wait until we knew for sure that she was asleep, especially due to the fact that her room was just down the hall from our own. With this in mind, we had to make sure she wouldn't be awakened by our late night antics. I'm gonna let that one slide because R and T are literally right next to each other on the keyboard. Pretty. As we sat at the dinner table, my brother and me simply eyed the pot that our mom was cooking our supper in, and boy did it smell divine. The only thing on our mind at that point was food. My mother simply kept stirring the pot, and as she was doing so, she asked how our day went. Gavin told her about how Miss Hickory was very angry that he had spilled some of the water in the kitchen, but as he said, it was because he didn't see the coffee table. Of course, both my mother and I thought it was hilarious, so we both laughed at Gavin's supposed excuse for being a klutz. Once dinner was served, which were the leftovers that Miss Hickory gave us earlier in the evening. That's not how that's sentenced. While we ate the soup, I began asking my mother how her day was and such. She told me that her day was very good, but I could tell that one of her... There's no way a 5-year-old would think this, but I could tell that one of her sexist co-workers had said something to her. A 5-year-old wouldn't know what the hell sexist is. There's no way. Well, I say that and my, 6-year-old niece knows, what the dead man's foot cross is. So, hard saying. They might. It also depends on how vocal the mom is to her kids about, God, this guy was such a sexual prick. I'm sorry, and I left it off. The way that I saw it was due to the fact that she was slouching, and her eyes looked gloomy with her mascara hastily reapplied to cover up the black streaks around her eyes. So, being the happy one out of the three of us, I told her how Gavin had pronounced washing machine. I got her to laugh and smile a little bit. Which made me feel better that I can still cheer her up. My alarm went off beside my bed, and I hit the snooze button to stop it from continuing its repetitive tone. The time had finally come to find out what exactly those bags held. I, still dressed in what I put on when I got back from Miss Hickory's house, woke up Gavin and quickly opened the window. Due to the reason our house was only one story, the window only showed our backyard, and the fence that separated our house from the rundown factory right across from us. We each got out of the window, bringing our flashlights with us. We then closed the window just enough so there was a crack in the seal so that we could fit our fingers under it in order to get back in. With everything set, we nodded in agreement and headed down the street to the neighborhood dumpster. God damn it, I wish I could quit right-clicking. The dump was nothing special. It was just a large blue container that had 2 black flap doors, which served as its opening. The entire container was surrounded by a concrete wall which helped to keep garbage from flying out. As we neared it, the perfume of garbage intoxicated the air and made Gavin nearly gag. But we had a mission to accomplish, so he quickly covered his nose with his shirt and nodded. Top of the container was too tall for either of us to reach, so Gavin, who was more athletic out of the two of us, gave me a boost. I grabbed the filthy rim of the container opening. It felt disgusting, as if all the most protruded and unholy elements of nastiness into a single object. I feel like there's a word missing in that sentence, and I can't stop whatever. I pulled myself into the garbage container, but I lost my grip as I tried to climb over to the other side. Landing on my back on top of a literal pool of filth, I nearly gauged at the smell. Son of a bitch. And the sheer feeling of garbage liquid seeping into my jacket felt even more repugnant. I got up and dusted myself off, and after pulling out my flashlight, I began to dig through the cesspool. "Tyson!" my brother called out to me suddenly. "Someone's coming!" he exclaimed through his whisper. Knowing that I couldn't possibly get out of the container, I had only one option: hide in the garbage and hope that they don't discover me. I piled at least 2 trash bags on top of myself, but I didn't cover my eyes so that I could see outside. The person turned out to be Miss Hickory. She peered into the garbage container and appeared to be oblivious of my presence. "What's she doing here?" I thought. Honestly didn't make any sense why she was here, since she had already thrown away whatever was in that bag. Why'd she come back? I thought as her head disappeared for a quick instant. She then brought up and set a black case onto the rim of the container. I knew that case. It was the one that contained those bottles. I saw the old woman whip out a piece of paper from her shirt, crumple it up, and threw it into the container, and conveniently landed near where I was hiding. After she had thrown the piece of paper in, she then began to take out one bottle that had something written on it, but it was too dark out to see what exactly it was. She then took off the top of the bottle and dumped out what looked like black liquid. Liquid splattered onto my face, and I thank God that I had covered my mouth with a bit of my jacket. However, the liquid stung my eyes and even began to blacken out my vision from the pure intensity. She then dropped the bottle down into the container, which I could hear the shattering of glass near my hiding spot. I still could not see, but then I felt something hit me in the stomach. It felt like something slightly heavy but flexible. I then heard Miss Hickory say, "Thank you for all the love that you had to give." I then heard her walk away until all I could hear were the buzzing of the street lamps. I then quickly began to get out of the garbage and began rubbing my eyes to get rid of the stinging sensation that the liquid had given me. As I got up, I then fell over whatever was previously on my stomach. Falling on top of it, I began to see slightly, and my God, I wish I hadn't. There, in front of me, was a skinned cat. Its muscles all pinkish gray, and its eyes were locked on me in what looked like a horrified stare. With panic overwhelming me, I kicked the body away and slid to the back of the container. That's when something stabbed me in the back. I reached back and pulled out whatever was stabbing me, and it was a piece of the bottle. However, now that I could see, I could finally make out what the letters letters on the bottle said. They were love. I threw the piece as soon as I read it, because as I looked up I saw that the corpse, that was now upside down, revealed a gaping hole in its chest where its heart would be. That liquid was blood from the cat. Now that I thought about it, I had seen Miss Hickory add some of this into the soup that she had made days before. I began to scream, but all that could be heard was a sickening gargling sound as I tried to scream out to the world that I had just experienced. But the blood that seeped into my mouth forbade me from doing so. That cat, in my sudden realization, was my cat, Patches. The reason I knew, because I screamed as I tasted the blood, and it was not a bad taste for the love I had given her. Damn. That was not actually what I expected at all. I kind of expected her to just whip out her dead husband. But, that was actually kind of interesting. Very poorly written, but that was interesting. I'm not gonna lie. There's something actually intriguing about this one. Again, poorly written, but I thought it was alright. I'm glad I took the time to review the story. Keep up the good work. That's not a review. That's not a review. Kind of threw me off was the vivid memories. I mean, he was 12, so I thought he was 5. It literally said thinking back to when I was 5. Where do you get 12 from? Minor orthographic errors, dual instead of dual, use instead of us. The ending for me is lacking something. It was too long. Why is your memory so bad that you can't remember before you were 12? Full offense, I can't remember before the 5th grade. So, like, fuck you, Taven. Go back to Mortal Kombat Armageddon. If any of you actually get that joke, you get a cookie. Also, I know it's an hour and 5 minutes in. How's that new mic stand working for you? What? Oh, it's working. Awesome. Thanks, Shelby. Shelly. I keep calling you Shelby because that's what your username says. I'm sorry. But, like, it was badly written, but, like, not gonna lie, the ending kind of fucked with my head. Just a little. But it wasn't great. It was on the brink of being good. I don't know. I'm trying to be kind of nice. I'm sorry. Let's see if we can find 2 more not as insanely long ones. Wait a sec. Tiny? Tiny? Are you telling me there's 5 fucking sizes of stories? There's tiny, short, medium, long, and huge. I'm not doing 5 different well, considering that this one's tiny, we'll see. We'll see. This one is called Requiem. Very, very foreboding title for something so short. Submitted by Mr. X. Isn't that from Resident Evil? Something occurred to me today. If there is really... Why me? If there really is something that could be called the soul, and it was immortal, then that would mean that you could live forever. Okay. Limitless possibilities come from this point, and it really makes me think, did I do the right thing in my life? Were all the things I did worth it? The things that those people hate me for? I'm lost. I remind myself that it was for the betterment of my people and my family. Though as I face my death, I have the impending anxiety that I will burn in hell. I mustn't be so hard on myself. I tell myself that it will all pay off in the end, that my cause was not for nothing. I stare at your dead body now, Eva. It sits on the floor motionless. Your eyes see nothing. Your skin is slowly turning white as I watch you, all the normalcy in it diminishing. I can tell that the pill has done its job. I've closed your eyes for you, so that you can sleep in peace. I love you so much, Eva. I will see you soon. Adolf Hitler's suicide note! Oh my god. Somebody made a creepypasta out of Hitler's suicide note. Dated 1945, found by an American medic, was recorded, then burned. Why are there no comments on this yet? This pasta was delicious. What is wrong with you people? Oh my god. I'm actually a little lightheaded. Oh my god. Interesting prospect to have an infamous figurehead speaking with words of nobility. An odd way to hold up a mirror to humanity, but I like it. The fuck are you even saying, Wayward Wanderer? It's all good. Oh well, it's my name. Shelley's a nickname. Okay, off to a great start. of the stories. Right. You do know that the Russians were present, not the Americans? Well, actually, yeah, got a point there. What ails you? Yes, Ultimate Pasta is correct. The Americans were busy in the Pacific while the Russians and other allies were invading Germany. Aside from that, interesting choice for a pasta. It was not very scary if that was your intention, but job well done nonetheless. Plague Doctor, I have to disagree. I have to heavily disagree. This was a rather dumb pasta. Oh my god. What's next? Okay, yay, we finally got a medium story. Which means all we have left to do is a long story. Although, should I count the huge one as long and save us some time? Y'all right out there?
No.
What happened?
I bought a whole bunch of energy drinks. Did you buy anything else?
We got you some Gatorade.
Ooh, a couple Gatorades. Didn't buy no soda or nothing?
It was expensive this time.
So were your fucking energy drinks.
99 cents is not expensive.
What?
99 cents is not expensive.
Neither is my soda. They ain't 99 cents a can. Mine's way cheaper than that. That's fucking expensive, yes.
Then you go grocery shopping. Or, I don't know, drink more water.
Mom,
She's at Shar's.
all day?
She's probably just chit-chatting now. She was cleaning earlier. I'm not her fucking secretary. Alright, this one is called World's Best School Psychologist. This better be good. When I was 12, I came to the conclusion that everyone in the world, including my own family, was against me. I was never a problemed child, but my parents sure treated me like one. Interesting. For example, I used to need to be home by 5 p.m. every day. This clearly restricted my amount of playtime outdoors. I wasn't allowed to have friends over to play at the house, nor was I allowed to go over to anyone else's. I had to finish homework directly after I came home from school, no matter how long it took. My parents refused to buy me video games and forced me to read books, and then write a book report on them to prove I actually read it. Now, even though those rules listed above were quite frustrating to me as a child, they aren't what upset me most. What really hurt me was the lack of compassion on behalf of my parents. My mother was a bitter woman who always made me feel guilty of accidents or mistakes I've made. My father only knew one emotion: frustration. The only time he spoke to me was when he screamed at me for receiving poor test scores or beat me for misbehaving. But enough about them. Let's talk about my school's psychologist. For his own privacy, we will call him Dr. Tanner. Like most junior high schools, a psychologist is always available on campus during school hours to assist any students in need of counseling, whether it is emotional, academic, social, behavioral, etc. To be honest, I have never seen any students talking with Dr. Tanner. Sorry, I was starting to get a mild headache. I needed to pop my neck. Every day I would walk past his office on my way to the cafeteria and peek through his door's little window. He would always be alone in there, working on some paperwork. I guessed that most kids were too afraid to speak about their problems to an adult who was practically a stranger. For this reason, it took me 3 weeks to muster enough courage to go into his office. March 2nd, 1993, was the day I decided to voice my troubles to Dr. Tanner. During lunch break, I stood in front of his office door and I knocked. Through the window, I could see him raise his head, smile, and motion for me to come in. I did. He greeted me by introducing himself and asking for my name. Dr. Tanner was a very soft-spoken man who seemed to radiate kindness. In less than 30 minutes, I rambled to Dr. Tanner about how mean my parents were to me and how they didn't care about me at all. After a while, my voice began to quaver and I stopped speaking. The psychologist listened patiently to my whole spiel, arms folded and head nodding. I half expected him to begin talking about how everything I had just said was untrue and that my parents loved me dearly and blah blah blah. But he didn't. Dr. Tanner leaned towards me on... I cannot read. Dr. Tanner leaned towards me with a grin on his face and said, "You know, I'm the best school psychologist in the world. I promise we will fix this." Tie up to you, my old friend. I rolled my eyes. "Okay, but how?" I asked. "I have my ways," he replied. "I'm a man of my word. I promise that within just 1 month, the relationship between you and your parents will change for the better. Forever." After a brief pause, he continued, "Although I do need you to make me a promise. You have to promise me that you'll come back to my office after school tomorrow, and that you won't tell anyone that we had this conversation today. It'll be our little secret." I promised. The following day, I returned to Dr. Tanner after school. It was around 4 p.m. when I entered his office. After a warm welcome, he asked me to have a seat in front of his desk once again. Upon sitting down, I watched Dr. Tanner close the blinds of the door's tiny window. "There," he smiled. "Now we have all the privacy we need." We began to talk about my likes and interests, my favorite subjects in school, my least favorite teachers, and things of the like. About an hour into the conversation, Dr. Tanner offered me a soft drink. I don't like where this is going. I gladly took the offer, considering my parents never allowed me to drink soda. Dr. Tanner reached over to his mini fridge and fidgeted around before setting down 2 open cans of soda on the desk. I don't like where this is going. Afterwards, we continued to talk about what was going on in my life, but it wasn't long before I passed out from whatever drugs Dr. Tanner placed in my drink. Fucking knew it. Knew it. Took me a minute or so to adjust my blurred vision upon waking. And when it did, I had no idea what to think. I was handcuffed to a bed and my mouth was sealed with duct tape. I immediately began to panic, squirming and tugging at the cuffs, but gave up soon after. My eyes widened in disbelief after looking around the room. There were posters of superheroes pinned up along the walls and photographs of famous athletes on shelves. In the middle of the room was an old television and a Super Nintendo. Various game cartridges stacked alongside it. I didn't know what to think. Here I am in a room filled with items most kids would die to play with. I would have probably cried from joy hadn't I been handcuffed to a bed frame. My stomach sank once again as the door opened and Dr. Tanner walked inside. He sat down on the edge of the bed. "Now listen," he said. "Remember that I'm here to help you and would never hurt you, okay?" Dr. Tanner gently removed the tape from my lips and then the cuffs from my hands. My first instinct was to begin crying, but something about Dr. Tanner made me feel safe. He smiled at me. "You're going to be staying here for a little while," he continued, "and during this time, you're allowed to play with any toys in this room while I'm here at home. But when I leave the house, I'll need to cuff one of your hands back to the bed. You can still watch the television, but I want you to only watch the news channels when I'm away." I sat in silence, still trying to process the information he had given me. "So," Dr. Tanner yipped, slapping me on the knee, "you go ahead and knock yourself out. I'll be back when it's time for dinner." He got up from the bed, walked across the room, and clicked the TV's power button before locking the door behind him. Several more minutes passed before I realized that Dr. Tanner wasn't joking. All that was left for me to do was boot up the Nintendo and play Mario until nightfall. At about 7 p.m., Dr. Tanner returned to the room carrying 2 plates of mashed potatoes and chicken strips. I finally gathered up the courage to ask him how long I'd be staying in this room. "Well, about a month," he replied, "give or take a few weeks. I just have some work I need to do." The following morning, I awoke to Dr. Tanner's hand patting my head. "Hey, bud, you don't have to wake up right now if you don't want, but I'm going to need to put this back on," he whispered, clamping the cold steel handcuff to my wrist. I gazed up at him. He was wearing a collared shirt and slacks, a coat draped over his shoulder, and a suitcase at his side. He looked just like how he always did when I saw him around school. Before leaving, he placed the TV's remote next to me and told me to turn it on and watch the news. First thing I saw upon turning it on was breaking news segment. An important-looking officer stood at his podium surrounded by people with microphones. I happened to begin viewing halfway through his speech. "A statewide Amber Alert has been issued as of this morning. We have several investigators working towards identifying potential abductors. As of right now, there is not much evidence. Faculty members state that the boy had been last seen around 4 or 5 in the evening on." I began to feel nauseous as a photograph of me appeared on the screen. It was my yearbook picture from last year. Captions for the photograph displayed my name and age, my school, and my town. Above my picture were alternating titles: FBI begins search for child, kidnapping suspect unknown, potential runaway. The live footage continued, and 2 figures I soon recognized as my mom and dad stepped up to the podium. Both appeared to have reddened eyes. Tears streamed down my mother's face as she took hold of a microphone. I'd never seen so much emotion come from my mother before as she wept on the live television, stuttering on sentences such as, "Please return my baby back to me," and "I'm so sorry," and "Please come home to us." When my father took the microphone, I nearly expected his attitude to be stone cold, but he too had tears in his eyes. He pleaded to the world to bring his son home safely, and lastly begged for my forgiveness. "I know I haven't been the best father, but god damn it, do I wish I had been now. Please bring my boy back." I turned the power off shortly after. My emotions were mixed, for I had never once seen my father cry. I felt miserable that my parents were being put through so much, but at the same time I felt relief. I now know how much Mom and Dad love me. Nearly 4 weeks have passed, and Dr. Tanner has been treating me with the utmost respect. He leaves me in the morning, cuffed to the bed frame, but returns in the afternoon to eat lunch and dinner with me, talk, and play games. I never would have guessed how good Dr. Tanner was at Monopoly and Scrabble. But one morning when Dr. Tanner woke me before heading off to work, I noticed a stern look on his face. I also realized that it was 3 hours earlier than when he usually wakes me. "You need to watch the news today. No exceptions. I want you to keep the television on all day and pay close attention to it," he stated grimly. I, of course, complied and watched him exit the room. About 2 hours later, a breaking news segment interrupted the toothpaste commercial I was watching. The title, "Human Remnants Found." 2 staunch-looking men in suits stood aside one another and began speaking. "We are displeased to bring up such unfortunate news this morning regarding our missing child case from earlier this month." One of the men bowed his head, while the one speaking shuffled through some papers. "Remains of a body have been found in a garbage bag beneath the highway overpass. The body appears to be that of a child, although not much of it is left. The body has been decapitated and much has been burnt to ash and bone." The screen shifted over to a helicopter view of the freeway. Dozens of police cars gathered near the bottom of a tall overpass. The man's voice could still be heard. Within the bag, police found a junior high school identification card labeled as such. The screen showed the school ID card I always kept in my backpack. The plastic was sort of melted away, but my photograph and name were intact. After the 2 men dismissed themselves, the camera panned over to my parents. They were sitting amongst reporters. My mother's face held a painful grimace, and my father sulked, his head down at his knees. I shut the television off. Dr. Tanner returned home very late. He hurried to the room, unlocked my cuffs, and placed a bottle of fizzing water into my hand. He placed his hands on my shoulders and smiled. "I made you a promise, didn't I?" I nodded, tears squeezing their way out of my eyes. "You need to make me a promise again," he whispered. He told me that I needed to drink all of the water in the bottle. It would help me sleep, and that from here on, I am never to tell anyone that I ever met him. I promised. "I told you, I'm the best school psychologist in the world, didn't I?" And he was right. I awoke later in the night to find myself lying in the middle of a park, stars shining brilliantly across the night sky. I recognized the park. It wasn't too far from my school. A mile or so down the road, I saw my house. The lights were off inside, but I could make out my father sitting on the step leading up to the front door. I hesitantly called out to him. He lifted his head slowly, but when he saw it was me, he sprang to his feet and ran towards me, arms open, yelling my name. My mother erupted from the house behind him. Dr. Tanner was right. Things have changed with my family and I. My parents smile more often and treat me lovingly. I could not have asked for a more perfect ending. Every now and then, I see Dr. Tanner on campus, talking to and from his office. Rarely do we ever make eye contact, let alone speak to one another. But sometimes, he'll shoot me a wink and a smile. I'll always keep my promise to him and pretend I never met him. But there'll always be one question forever floating in my mind. Who did Dr. Tanner decapitate and throw off the overpass? That was good. That one was actually good. I like that one. Ooh, I've actually got chills. I mean, to be fair, that is one way to get a kid's parents to love him again. Completely take it away from him. It's not very ethical, but it got the job done. Oh wow, actually now that my hair's dry, it does look a little more white. Oh well. It's been 1.5 hours, but you know what? We haven't come across one that was long, huh? We did a short, we did a huge, we did a tiny, and now we've done a medium. Have we actually done 4 stories? I don't know, fuck it. What's next? Another medium. Next. Medium next. Medium next. Medium next. Did we do a short? I think we did a short. Is it a short one we haven't done, or is it a long one we haven't done? I can't remember. Oh well, fuck it. Let's just jump into it. Lucid mystery. Ooh, yay, I like lucid dreams. Shit trips me out. A lucid dream is when the dreamer knows that he or she is dreaming at the moment. This powerful knowledge can make the dream seem more fun, with the dreamer being able to control everything. Meanwhile, an out-of-body experience is when the dreamer is not dreaming, but they believe that they are currently in a dream. However, what happens when a dreamer believes that he is in a dream, but realizes that he cannot control it? That, my friends, is called a lucid mystery. Story. Wait. Okay, mild issue, but I'm going to ignore it. Just this once. But you don't need to mark when the story begins. Presumably this part is also part of the story. It's all good. I don't know how much time I have. I don't know if I will be alive or out of this nightmare by some grace of God. No, this has to be a dream. It all started, well, I have no idea how this whole thing started. I never know how something in a dream begins because you are always thrown in the middle of an action. That went downhill rather quick. In other words, I have some sort of knowledge that something is going on, but it's all too fuzzy, and I currently am too busy running as fast as I can. You see, I am in a dream. At least, I am almost perfectly positive that I am. The walls have been leaking this weird watery gel substance at a constant rate throughout, and I know that that has to be an indicator of a dream. Nothing that outlandishly strange happens in real life, right? Meanwhile, I also hear the distant screams of metal bars and rods as they start to fall to pieces and crash onto the wet pavement on the puddle-ridden floor. I do know one thing. I must be running away from something because I have been noticing fleeting shadows on both sides of the tunnel. Sometimes I fall down. Once, I tripped on a small metal bar lying in the middle of the corridor. I started to gather myself when I started to feel the darkness start to envelop me. God damn it. I can't tell you what that means, but I feel my soul, my humanity, being ripped away from me. My body is crippled, both by my incredible fear of my soul being attacked and the fact I can't do anything physical. I can't simply move at my own will and escape from the grasp of darkness. The sensation can only be described as being forced down upon the ground with much force, like in a dream. This must be a dream, a very real and visceral nightmare. I believed that I could wake up at any moment, as was typical for these kinds of nightmares. I tried to reason that whatever is attacking me is not real, and I am perfectly safe in my own bed. Everyone must have nightmares like this sometimes. I start to whistle out loud to myself to calm my nerves. It is at this time that I hear footsteps. They start out quiet, but sound repetitive. Wow, almost like footsteps. They do not have a regular pattern, as the person walks at a limp pace. Whoever is coming towards me must be struggling. Maybe they are a friend that I just don't remember, and they need my help. I pound my head with my palm, trying to wake myself, but the walls around me start to quake again, followed by the screams of metal and crashing of water as the rusted bars and rods fall into puddles on the floor. These footsteps start to get increasingly louder and closer, as if the person is getting closer to me. I stop to call out to the mysterious limper. Hello? What is the meaning of this? No answer. Not even a noise. The only thing I hear is from this disembodied walker is the increasing louder noise of footsteps. I start to believe that this mystery person wants to see me badly, for good or for bad. For good or for bad, I remains a mystery. I'm pretty sure he meant it. For that exact moment when I suspect that I will see my mysterious companion, the walls get more unsteady and start to quake again. The watery gel substance starts to fill up the corridor I'm in with much more force and speed. The corridor slowly becomes a death trap as I continue my frantic escape. But the darkness, it returns to drag me back into the cold, dark substance. Screams from the metal bars get more and more intense and the room starts to quake. I start to sprint to try and escape the approaching cascade of watery gel. But no matter how fast I go, the water comes at me faster and faster. I have no way of outrunning the water. The walls of the corridor start to bend and warp as the metal screams louder and louder. The footsteps in the distance are masked by the horrible sound of broken industry as the last steel rods and metal bars fall off the supports, causing the room to completely fall apart. I must be dreaming, I think to myself. The companion can help me. However, I can't even hear myself think as I start to yell out for the companion's help. The splashing footsteps recede into the dark void of my nightmares. The darkness and water both envelop me and cover me whole. The darkness latches onto me as I start to breathe my last breath. I'm asleep. It's all just a dream. Wake up! Wake up! That left a lot to be desired. To put it bluntly, that story is not very... This one wasn't very intriguing to me. And that really sucks because I like lucid dreaming and stuff. I like the idea of, ooh, what if I can control this dream? But then to suddenly have that, like, ripped away from you, that shit's interesting to me. Because it's like, what decides whether or not you can control your dreams? Like, what part of your brain allows you to actually control that and then suddenly takes it away? That kind of thing interests me. This did not. This did not. Alright. I think I'm actually gonna cut it short here. I'm actually a little bit tempted to read this one because not the first line, but the very beginning line to the actual story says, "My family could be pretty racist." How long? Oh god, it's a really long one. I'll save this one for next time. I'm gonna bookmark this. NC ends. Alrighty. Well, this was actually a very decent stream, and I feel like I held my tongue for most of the readings. Except for, the second story, because I'm a twat and I can't bother to keep my opinions to myself. So, I would like to thank all of you for watching and for joining me again on some random creepypasta readings. We got seemingly one bad, sort of bad one, and then some mostly decent ones. So, I'll probably do this again either tomorrow or Friday. We'll see. And then come Saturday, Sunday, we're going to do another Homestuck stream. I'm going to see if I can't get Shelly and Jake back into a group chat so we can go over the next chapter, because spicy shit's happening. Anyway, I have been your narrator for the evening, Fallout Sheppy, afternoon, morning, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope that you enjoy the rest of it, and have a good one. Oh, hang on, before I go, thank you guys so much for 35 subscribers! This is awesome! I actually didn't think anybody found me entertaining. And I don't know how else to say thank you for subscribing. It makes me feel like I'm actually, somewhat entertaining to people and can at least, I don't know, keep you occupied. Even if it's just to rip on me and critique me and shit, I don't care. That's still awesome. So, thank you guys so much. So, hi, Rudy. You're a little late. It's okay. It should be up in, less than an hour. Don't worry. Next time, I will probably do a much longer stream. I just don't know how, what time I've got to work with before come dinner. So, thank you guys again. Also, thank you for 769 followers on Instagram. That is epic. Holy shit. And I didn't think anybody liked what I did. Be it my streams, be it my artwork, be it whatever. So thank you guys for that too, and hopefully we'll do something awesome as celebration. Maybe I'll do an announcement, not an announcement, maybe I'll do a giveaway or something on here or on Instagram. We'll figure it out. Anyways, for the final time in this stream, I have been Fallout Sheppy. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good one. Yeah, yes, end.